when they speak, they're going to come with their former government rhetoric. But perhaps, Madam Speaker, if they were a more effective opposition, if indeed some of the things that they claim to have happened, which I have no evidence that they did, then perhaps they would not have happened. But I want to say here, Madam Speaker, the little time that we have in opposition, because we'll not be in opposition for much longer, we will ensure that we hold the UPP government accountable. And I don't think that it is in the interest of good governance for them to become defensive and then to attack members on this side. Because I know, for instance, Madam Speaker, having listened to the member for Rural West and the Honourable Attorney General, I heard him threatening one of my members over here, trying to intimidate him. In other words, Madam Speaker, they're trying to say, look, you should not speak. No, Madam Speaker, we have a role to play in the governance of this country, a fundamental role. And it doesn't matter what may have happened before at this point, at this given point, we are examining a particular issue. The spending at the Cricket World Cup, we have demonstrated, Madam Speaker, that we have not gotten good value for money, and that based on what has transpired there is a need for an independent inquiry for this issue. Now, what else, Madam Speaker, do we have to do to get the ears of the member for St. John's Rural West, the Honourable Prime Minister? Are we going to have a public demonstration and put tens of thousands of people on the road to get his ear, Madam Speaker? And Madam Speaker, when you look at the precedent that was set by the Antigua Labour Party in some instances, just based on a mere allegation, has held inquiries on various issues. Some of them was just pure political rhetoric. Here is a situation in which we have presented the nation, this Honourable House today, with tangible evidence confirming that there are some fundamental issues of corruption, issues of extortion of state resources, issues of bad governance, and yet still the members on the other side will not heed our call. Madam Speaker, I want to say here that if this matter is not addressed in a reasonable way in the interest of all Antiguans and Barbudans, we will elevate the issue. So I want to say here to the Honourable Member for Rural West, try and save your government the trouble, because we're not going to relent in this issue. And I see that the member is very cavalier about it. See, Madam Speaker, that the Honourable Prime Minister, the member for Rural West, is not committed to the principles of good governance. And I know at some point in this Honourable House, I'll hear members on the other side speaking about issues of transparency and accountability. But, Madam Speaker, what is happening here is that we are testing their commitment to good governance. And I guarantee you that they will fail miserably this evening, because at the end of the day, they see this issue as an exclusively partisan issue, when it's a national issue that is impacting on the lives of the people of this country. Madam Speaker, if the $50 million that was overspent at the stadium was available to the Treasury, perhaps a housing project could be built in City West for the people down there. They need proper houses. Madam Speaker, it could have been utilized for the opening of Mount St. John. This is not a small issue. This is a fundamental governance issue. And I just hope that the Honourable Member for St. John's Rural West will stop treating this issue in a frivolous way, and to understand that if indeed he is committed to the issues of transparency and accountability, that he will do something about it. Appoint an independent commissioner or group of commissioners to deal with this issue. Because again, if you have nothing to hide, then you should not worry about the outcome. And if it is just to appease a portion of the population that there was no wrongdoing, I believe, Madam Speaker, that it would have been monies well spent. And I cannot support this cavalier manner in which the Honourable Prime Minister is dealing with this issue. Call inquiry. And if you don't call inquiry, trust me, this issue going right into the elections. Because, you know, Madam Speaker, I half suspect that they are perhaps worried about dealing with this issue because it is indicative of corruption within the UPP. And notice I said indicative. And I want to say here that we will not be guided by the actions or the inaction of members of the UPP. So, by ignoring this call for an independent inquiry to the issue, it will not go away. And let me say this too. When we win the next general elections, we will call inquiry. And I also want to say it here, you may be better advised, through you, Madam Speaker, you may be better advised to call the inquiry now and manage it. Because when we call it, when we win the next general elections, rest assured, Madam Speaker, heads will roll. Heads will roll. It's $50 million we're talking about here. That was overspent at the stadium. Now, Madam Speaker, in summing up, I want to say here, or I want to reiterate the call for a public inquiry into the spending at Sir Vivian Richards Stadium, and I'm calling upon the UPP government, the Honourable Prime Minister and his ministers, to do so, not necessarily because of our call, but to do so, Madam Speaker, in the interest of transparency and accountability, in the interest of good governance. And let me say this to Madam Speaker, we have had several pickets on several occasions. We have had up to 200, 300 people on the road. And you have to understand a picket, not a march, not a public demonstration, a picket. And during the hours, Madam Speaker, when people have to work, and if that is not demonstrable of public interest in this issue, why, Madam Speaker, isn't this member, the Honourable Member for Rural West, responding to the request? And I want to say, you ignore this issue at your own peril. And I hope that the people of this country are listening. And I hope that they will listen very keenly. And I want to say to the nation, tune out when they talk about farmer government. The LP not in power now. But what they normally do, Madam Speaker, when you put their stewardship on their microscope, they run to the farmer government rhetoric. Farmer government, you're all in power for 4 years. The farmer government you're telling us about. Madam Speaker, I serve in government. At no point did I mention anything about farmer PLM government. So I want to tell you on the other side, we're not accepting the farmer government rhetoric today. Give an account of your stewardship. Tell us about your role in this ripoff, which has been the single largest ripoff in the history of this country. Tell us about that. And Madam Speaker, in closing, I just want to say here too, that there are other issues in terms of full transparency and the open and equitable distribution of government's procurement contracts to avert distortion of competition. Make sure that you put systems in place so that the entire population can benefit. Not that you're going to choose a few friends and cronies and allow them to make millions of dollars when you have others out there who are more capable, who are excluded. Put systems in place so that you have a more efficient governance framework, a more efficient government, better management of public resources, and as a consequence, more resources available to the people of this country, including the poor and the vulnerable. With those words, Madam Speaker, I thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. I acknowledge the Honourable Member for St. John's Rural North. Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon, that's right. We need a seconder. I'm sorry.
Madam Speaker, I support the motion.
Honourable members, please.
I support the motion, Madam Speaker, and reserve my right to speak later.
Thank you. Honourable member for St. John's Rural North, are you still interested? You acknowledge.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, after a long listen from the Honourable Member for St. John's City West. Yes, Madam Speaker, how much time are you allowing so that I can get to my point?
You have an hour.
Pardon me?
1 hour.
1 hour. I don't think I'll need that, Madam Speaker, because I am going to deal with just a specific part of the issue. But, Madam Speaker, I want to start by a quote from Proverbs 14, chapter 6. And, Madam Speaker, it says, "A mocker seeks wisdom and never find